is a 10-minute slot, just to make sure that you focus on the things that really, really matter. And just as a little aside, that 10 minutes each day, that adds up to more than a hill of beans over the course of a year. It's 7 working days over the course of your year. So it really is worth trying to think about time in a different way and whether you can squeeze in those little amounts of time. Many of you may use Pomodoro technique as a way to push in those little periods of time. It's an incredibly valuable technique, and it's pretty similar. Thinking about things in small slots of time tends to mean that you can focus on them with more intensity. You can't keep that up all day, that intensity, but it's really good for making sure that important tasks get done. Just as a sort of a final aside, really, some of us will be working more than 55 hours a week on a regular basis. The Lancet did a study some years ago which said that increases stroke risk by 1/3 and heart disease by 13%. That's not something that we want for any of us. Nobody on their deathbed said, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. It's a classic, but it's true, and it's really worth thinking about in detail. In a 56-hour week, your employer gets buy 2 get 1 free offer with your life. So it's something for which in return you get lower productivity and worse health. So do think about the time outside your paid hours as being your time. If you choose to spend that on your employment, then that's great. That's all good. And we can't always fit our time into a paid working week. Of course we can't. That's not realistic. But it is worth thinking about whether some of your longer working hours are possibly a choice, not a choice in the sense that you're choosing to do that stuff, but perhaps that you're not choosing to end some of the stuff that you could end. So have a think about dividing your time in that way and making it dynamic and forcing those little 1-minute slots into your day. Your 10-minute slots into your day, your 1%, that will make you dynamic for that period of time. So that's the end of my part of the presentation, and I'll hand back now to Chair Anita for the next moment.
Thank you, Kay and Tom. I love your presentation. It's beautiful and so timely in the challenges that we have in our sector at the moment. The discussion forums and the Q&A are humming along, and we've got a really wonderful question here from Michelle. Michelle has asked if there are any advice to encourage leaders to be open into hearing what their staff are saying, in respect that it's hard to hear from your staff when what you're doing isn't sitting well with them.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, isn't it? It's so true at the moment. I think it's, as a leader, you need to be a good listener as well, don't you? It's a big part of it. Maybe I didn't make that clear. But being able to listen. So, an open door kind of policy is really important. If you're being trustful and truthful with them, they'll feel more comfortable. Hopefully, the strategies that I talked about, they're going to have be more comfortable about coming to you with different things. But you could build in more time into team meetings. There'll be different ways that you can work it, but hopefully the strategies I mentioned are creating that culture more so. And if you are a good listener as well and taking the time to listen to them, that will hopefully open those doors for your staff to be more comfortable to do that.
I think if we're talking about another manager who is perhaps not listening to things being difficult, then I would certainly go down the route of focusing on, first of all, asking for priorities amongst particular tasks, if not everything is possible, and secondly, focusing on evidence, if it's possible to get some evidence about operations which illustrate the impact of particular things or why certain things are more important than others.
That's a great segue, actually, Tom, into the question that Katrina had asked, which was, how does one manage a staff member that says they're too busy, they can't take on any more work, but that they do not have as much and exaggerate their workload in team meetings? And she's particularly talking about working remotely without micromanaging. So I think you've just touched on that, Tom, but what's your perspectives on that?
I think this is maybe one for Kay initially in terms of the team management aspect.
Yes. I think that, like I said, you're putting your trust, but sometimes that trust won't be returned. And I definitely believe that's the minority. But there will be the odd time when you'll need to, be more overt with some staff members. But I think the one-on-one meetings, taking the time to sit down and talk to them and ask them to genuinely tell you what they have on their plate. And I think once you're getting to know them better and maybe you get to know what's going on in their family life and the like, you might be able to have a bit more empathy. So you've got to have a bit of empathy there. But I think one-on-one discussions with them, really listening, really going through what they genuinely are doing and working on ways that you can get them to do a little bit extra. It will take a little bit of time, but once again, that time will be well spent. So empathy as well.
And I think we've got just 30 seconds, just time for another quick little question here, which Stuart asked, which is, how would you personally manage a situation where you have information where you can't share it, where confidentiality is really important? How would you manage that with your staff?
So I mentioned in my talk about just being honest that you can't share something, people will pick up that you do know more than you're letting on. So you need to say, look, at this moment I can't share it. It is confidential, but like I said earlier, as soon as you are able to, I will share it with you. And I think staff will understand that. They'll understand there are some things that you just can't share at that particular moment, but they just want to know that you're doing as much as you can and you're being as honest as you can with them. So, yeah.
I've used the same technique myself, Kay, and it definitely does work to build trust. So that's all we do have time for in this first session. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming and participating. Thank you so much, Kay and Tom, for your wonderful, wonderful presentation that's so salient at this particular time. The next session will start at 11:45, so everybody will have time to jump out of here and then pop into the next one. So thank you, everybody, and we look forward to continuing a wonderful conference.